In today's deeply interconnected world, where economies are woven together by complex supply chains and digital networks, a single policy decision made in Washington can send shockwaves across continents, instantly affecting markets, businesses, and everyday lives worldwide. The recent move by the U.S. Supreme Court to block the proposed Trump tariffs stands out as one such pivotal and historic moment. This isn't just a domestic legal battle. It marks a turning point for globalization and the very rules that have governed world trade for decades, challenging long-held assumptions. For investors, manufacturers, and policymakers around the globe, the verdict sent a powerful signal about the direction of the world's largest economy and its commitment to open markets. The proposed tariffs threaten to ignite a new era of protectionism, risking a global trade war that could have disrupted supply chains and raised prices for consumers everywhere. The court's intervention pulled the global economy back from the brink, reaffirming the enduring power of legal and institutional checks to shape international relations and economic stability. This landmark ruling now forces a critical conversation about America's future role in global commerce and whether it will continue to champion free trade or retreat inward. The world now waits and watches closely to see if U.S. political leaders will uphold this integrated approach to global trade, or if they will choose to chart a new, uncertain course for the future. The tariff plan at the heart of this controversy was bold. Trump proposed a universal 10% tariff on all imports and over 60% on Chinese goods. The goal: reshore manufacturing, protect U.S. industries, and shrink the trade deficit. Supporters claimed it would create jobs and restore economic sovereignty while generating billions in revenue. But critics warned it would raise prices for American families and disrupt industries reliant on global supply chains. Major trading partners threatened swift retaliation, and the World Trade Organization cautioned against a catastrophic trade war. China, the main target, vowed to hit back at key U.S. exports. The world braced for a global economic conflict, with the U.S. at its center. The stakes: the very fabric of international commerce. The Supreme Court's decision would determine whether this protectionist vision would become reality. The legal battle over the tariffs centered on a fundamental question that would test the very structure of American government and its separation of powers. Who controls U.S. trade policy, the President or Congress? This question has deep roots in the Constitution and has sparked debate for generations. Business groups and legal experts argued that the Constitution clearly gives Congress, not the President, the exclusive power to set tariffs and regulate foreign commerce, emphasizing the importance of checks and balances. The administration, however, pointed to laws like the Trade Act of 1974 and the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, claiming these statutes granted the president broad authority to act swiftly in times of economic threat or national emergency. As the lawsuits moved through the courts, lower courts issued conflicting rulings. Some judges deferred to presidential power, while others sided with Congress, highlighting the legal uncertainty. The Federal Circuit Court ultimately found that the administration's use of these laws far exceeded their original intent, arguing it amounted to a significant congressional power grab by the executive branch. Recognizing the profound constitutional stakes and the potential to set a major precedent, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. At the heart of the case was a core issue. Can the president unilaterally impose sweeping tariffs that affect the entire economy, or does that crucial power remain firmly with Congress? The answer would not only resolve this dispute, but also reshape the balance of power among the branches of the U.S. government for years to come. The world watched closely, knowing that the outcome would reverberate far beyond America's borders, influencing global trade and international relations. The stage was set for a historic Supreme Court decision that could redefine the limits of presidential power. In a landmark 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court blocked the universal tariffs, delivering a decisive check on executive power. The majority ruled that only Congress can enact such sweeping changes to trade policy, not the president acting alone. The court dismantled the administration's legal arguments, clarifying that existing statutes were never meant for a wholesale overhaul of U.S. trade. The dissent warned this could limit future presidents' flexibility, but the majority held firm. Major policy shifts require legislative approval. The ruling draws a clear line between targeted executive actions and broad legislative authority. This precedent will shape presidential power for decades, ensuring Congress remains central in trade decisions. The message, transformative economic change, must go through the people's representatives. The Supreme Court's decision sparked instant relief in global markets. U.S. stocks surged, especially in sectors most threatened by tariffs: retail, automotive, and tech. Asian and European markets rallied, as companies like Toyota and BMW saw their U.S. access secured. The dollar dipped as investors shifted to riskier assets, while currencies of U.S. trading partners strengthened. Industrial metals rose, reflecting renewed confidence in global trade. Investors saw the ruling as a vote for stability and predictability over chaos. The threat of a trade war had been lifted, at least for now. The world's preference for a rules-based system was clear. From New York to Hong Kong, the sigh of relief was palpable. Across the U.S. economy, the Supreme Court's ruling was met with widespread relief. Business leaders, workers, and investors alike breathed a collective sigh. This was especially true in industries deeply tied to global trade, where uncertainty had loomed large for months. Retail giants like Walmart and Target quickly praised the decision, emphasizing that it protected American families from the threat of higher prices on everyday goods, from groceries to electronics. The automotive industry, which relies on complex global supply chains, avoided thousands in added costs per vehicle and the risk of potential job losses that could have rippled through local communities. For manufacturers of steel and aluminum, the response was more nuanced and mixed. Many wanted stronger protection from foreign competition to support domestic jobs, but they also recognized the legal limits set by the court and the need for clear, consistent rules. These divisions highlight the ongoing, often heated debate between free trade and protectionism, a debate that shapes policy and livelihoods. America's farmers, who are often caught in the crossfire of international trade disputes, welcomed the ruling as a crucial safeguard for their critical export markets. Agricultural groups stressed that continued access to foreign buyers is absolutely vital for their survival and the health of rural economies. The decision preserved a measure of stability for a sector already facing unpredictable weather and volatile commodity prices. Ultimately, the ruling exposed deep rifts in the business community, with some calling for more protection and others championing open markets. But for most, it was seen as a victory for economic certainty and a step toward restoring confidence. The message was clear. America's prosperity is closely tied to open markets, global cooperation, and predictable rules that businesses can rely on. The threat of a trade war had cast a long, unsettling shadow over the economy. But now, at least for the moment, the sun had come out, offering hope for a more stable future. The Supreme Court's decision echoed through capitals worldwide. In Brussels, EU leaders called it a win for the rules-based order and a chance to reset transatlantic trade. The EU shelved plans for retaliatory tariffs, expressing cautious optimism. China, the main target of the tariffs, welcomed the outcome as a rejection of unilateralism and a step toward dialogue. Other partners, Canada, Mexico, Japan, South Korea, praised the stability the ruling brought. Yet beneath the relief, caution lingered. The episode revealed the strength of protectionist forces in the U.S. Many countries are now accelerating efforts to diversify trade and reduce reliance on the American market. The world's response relief, but also a renewed focus on building resilient supply chains. The threat may have passed, but the lesson remains. The global trading system is more fragile than it seemed. The immediate crisis may be over, but the long-term impact is just beginning. Multinational companies now see the risks of concentrating supply chains in one country, especially amid geopolitical tensions. The China Plus One strategy is accelerating, with firms diversifying production to Vietnam, India, Mexico, and beyond. Rebuilding supply chains is complex and costly, but political risk is now a top concern. The Supreme Court's decision didn't erase the underlying tension. It only bought time. Expect a more fragmented, regionalized global economy as companies and countries seek stability. Nations will compete to attract investment, forging new trade blocs and agreements. The World Trade Organization faces pressure to reform, but its authority is in question. The era of seamless globalization may be ending, replaced by strategic regionalization and greater uncertainty. The world is recalibrating for a new age of trade. The Supreme Court's ruling marks a turning point in economic history. It rejected a radical shift toward protectionism and reaffirmed Congress's authority over trade. The decision calmed markets and reassured industries and allies, but the debate between globalization and nationalism endures. The threat of tariffs has changed how businesses assess risk, accelerating the push for resilient, diversified supply chains. The world is moving toward a more regionalized, fragmented trading system. The underlying tensions, inequality, job loss, sovereignty, remain unresolved. The court closed one path to economic nationalism, but others may emerge. The future of global trade is unwritten. Will nations build a more inclusive system, or will rivalry and fragmentation prevail?